Welcome to What I Meant to Say, where we discuss parenting, relationships, and wisdom that can be passed down through generations. All right, well, I'm here today with Audrey Baldwin, a professional soccer player, retired
Yes,
professional.
retired, yes.
And we came together through a mutual friend that Jerry Reeder, who has been on my podcast, and I would never turn down an introduction from Jerry because she's just such a beautiful person. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we could get connected. The stars aligned on that one.
Absolutely. And I see your sweatshirt says human first, athlete second.
Yes.
So I see why Jerry put us together.
Yes.
Can I get one of those sweatshirts?
Yes, you definitely can.
Okay,
this
cool.
is one of my friends started this, so I work with them just to I love their mission and the Athlete Confidential. So
yes,
yeah.
I started following them on Instagram after I looked at your profile, and then I found my way to them. It's such amazing work.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your sports background, how you got into soccer, and what that road was like, and then obviously it's ended up where it has today. So
yeah, I played soccer my whole life. I was never good when I was younger. I can honestly say that.
Wow, that's a really important thing for people to hear.
Yeah, that's why I literally try to tell it. I was not good when I just enjoyed it, and it wasn't until probably high school that I started to do private lessons as a goalkeeper. And it was my own choice. My club had brought someone in, and my parents were like, well, if you really want to, you can. They never pushed us into taking anything so seriously. They wanted us to play sports, but nothing super serious, which I think is different. I think that's why I could last so long with it. I never got burnt out.
Yeah, burnout is such a real thing. And I would say the same. I never played at the levels that you have, but I never burn out because I just played different stuff. I followed my interests.
Yep. You actually find the joy in it versus putting so much pressure on yourself at such a young age, and that's when you burn out because there's no need for it. So I started private training during high school. Still wasn't very good, but I was getting there. And then out of high school, again, not super great. Didn't go to a huge school that people know of or anything. And then so I was going to commit D3, but my goalkeeper coach was the coach at a local community college, and he convinced me to do that and stay with him for 2 years, which was hard because I was good at school and stuff.
Yeah. So that's a big one. Yeah. That gave me chills. That's a big decision.
Yeah. Because it's that stigma of oh, it's a community college. I don't want to go there. But I had a lot of friends that were going, so I was like, okay, we'll just do it. So a ton of us went. We had the best time through the years. We started getting nationally ranked. My sophomore year, we got 4th in the country and went to the nationals. I got ranked in the country. And so that was the most amazing experience, and it's what got me way better to stay at a place that I could actually evolve and get more experience to be able to go somewhere else. And that's when I started getting D1 offers and could go to a school that I actually would really want to versus just settling. So I went to Arkansas State for my junior year. I loved the school. I hated the soccer.
Okay.
So a lot of us did because of the coach. So 8 of us left that year, not including seniors. So me and another girl on the team, we ended up going to a school called Texas Corpus Christi. Yeah. And this was their first year of their program. So I was taking a chance. So I went there for my senior year. I was the only senior. Oh, wow. And again, got nationally ranked, did really, really well. I think I ended up at one point being 7th in D1, nationally. So I started to get that taste of it. And then I had some friends, particularly one friend that I trained with my old goalkeeper coach that played professionally. And at that time, she was in Iceland. So I reached out to her. She put me in touch with her agent. And I just worked my way to start playing professionally. And then since that was 2014 or 15, I think it was the end of 2014 was when I went to my first team in Portugal. And then from there I played 9 different countries, probably 13 different teams.
God, what a way to see the world.
Yeah, it was, and it's just because I just kept saying yes. It wasn't that, and I was working really hard, and because I enjoyed training, and I enjoyed getting better. So I loved climbing that ladder, and I played at the highest levels and then definitely the lowest levels.
Yeah, so a little bit on that, climbing that ladder.
Yeah.
As you ascended through these ranks you just described, what were the things when you were getting better? Like practice, weights, nutrition, all the things, right?
All of it, yeah.
And how did you stair step that? How did that build?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was my mentality of how I was taking everything. So if I made a mistake in a game, I knew I wanted to get better. I always have a rule for myself when I was playing, was that I was never going to get scored on the same way twice. So obviously that's subjective a little bit, just because the game is live, so nothing is ever fast, right. Yeah. Nothing's ever the same. It could literally be the same shot, and something else could have thrown you off. But I never wanted to get scored on the same way twice. So I always learned from that mistake from that point. And because I had that, it didn't matter what level I was playing at, whether it was a good team or a bad team. I was always taking that approach. So I really focused in on my training at that point. I always ate healthy. I never really I love my pizza and I love my donuts and stuff, but love
but you're not eating them every day.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So I ate as healthy as I could with that and tried to stay in shape as much as I could. Injuries were a big factor throughout my career. Huge, actually. Okay. I like to say that my body wasn't made for sport, but I made it for sport. Uh-huh. And so I just kept getting injury after injury and just forcing myself to do it.
What body parts only? Because I joke that my ankles weren't made for volleyball.
Oh, yeah.
I was a swimmer and a volleyball player, and my ankles were much better in the pool.
Yeah, exactly. So. That's exactly it. Honestly, my entire body, I've probably had an injury every single year. So from the start, I tore my shoulder in 2010, tore my ankle in 2010 as well. I ended up getting my shoulder fixed 8 years later, so 2018 I ended up getting it fixed. But just little things that add up. That was one thing that I didn't take care of, and I don't think it was as prominent then.
Well, and it sounds like you have the mentality, when you love something, you can push. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and being down sucks.
Yeah, especially there was a level of pressure as a foreigner, especially when you're just starting out in your career, to always play, to always be your best, and if you're not, they're going to cut you. They wanted perfection from foreigners, because otherwise they could just choose someone that's already there, and we cost way more. So if they're bringing in a foreigner, they're spending so much extra money on us, and we're also taking a spot from someone that's native that could be there and getting better instead of us. So we had to prove every single day in, day out, that we were better than everyone else.
Wow.
And they held us to a perfectionist standard. And it's not for everyone, especially when you're at the lower levels and you're working your way up. There's only a certain amount of foreigners they can take as well on a team, and that can play at one time. So if you're taking up that spot, you better take up that spot, and it better be yours. And I was lucky enough to do that most of the time, but I can see how it also affected, I used to have nightmares and stuff. We could always get into all that. I would put so much mental pressure on myself. I just turned it into fuel. It did affect me a little bit negatively, but I turned it into fuel most of the time. So I was really lucky in that aspect.
Do you think you were born with that, or do you think those mental skills kind of added up over the years?
I think both. And I say I'm born with it because my parents taught me a lot, and even just observing, but also from not putting that pressure on myself in the early years. I think that got brought into that pressure situation versus being born into a pressure situation and learning how to deal with that first.
Yeah.
I just got lucky that I just almost ignorance is bliss type thing where you're just
Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 30. Oh God, I just turned 32. I almost said 31.
Okay.
I literally just turned 32.
Well, happy birthday. And you know what? I do think there's a generational aspect to this, because I'm 49 and I played all kinds of sports, and the pressure definitely was not there. People who loved to play kept playing. The good ones went to college. Just on from there. And then I hear, you and Ash and people in their 30s, there's a different, the pressure was starting to come on, but where did you grow up?
In Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's geographical, but then we were talking, off camera about the pressure living here, California, Southern California. Even there's so much athletic prowess and coaching and amazing programs, but there's also a lot of pressure and entitlement and that stuff that comes on young for these kids that aren't going to help them get to the levels that you've got.
And I almost wonder as well, at least from a female aspect, like, because there's more opportunity now, there's more pressure of like, oh, well, it's not just the few that get to do it now. So like you have more of a chance. So you actually can do it. And it's a great thing that obviously there's more opportunity and there's more growth and everything like that. But because of that, there's more pressure because it is almost more expected of certain
that you're going to make it.
Yeah, that you're going to make it. And if you don't, how could you not? You have so much opportunity. You have so many like chances you could. There's so many avenues you could take, but you're still not making it. So I think that's also a level that this generation and everything is kind of falling into. I mean, there's 13-year-olds. I worked briefly as like an agent or helping agents for soccer. And I was talking to 13, 14-year-olds now in the States. And like abroad, that's always been the case, right? But there's always been more opportunity. Yeah. There's like 5 tiers, like 5 divisions, and then there's like 12 teams in each division. So there's so many teams, there's so much opportunity.
America's just getting
and
barely getting a hold of
that. So it's like people are learning and they're like, oh, we have these other avenues. So now 13-year-olds are getting the pressure and 15-year-olds, and there's people making starts at that age. And this area, I guess, like is just learning how to deal with that, especially California, because there's so many people, and you're right, like there's so much money and there's so many things that like you better make it.
No, it's incredibly hard on kids, and and to make it to the level that you have played at, I mean, just that expectation, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't be there. And I've raised 2 college athletes that have had very different paths. My third one quit sports after COVID and said I want to do theater. And my fourth one, he's 6'8" and he doesn't play sports. He surfs and skates. So it's like, if you don't let kids, I'm a very big believer in letting kids walk their paths. Because we put so much pressure. Kids put pressure on themselves anyway, without the parents. So, and it sounds like you were kind of cut from that cloth too. Like you were going to put that pressure on yourself.
Exactly. And my parents were always, I don't know that they never played at that level or anything. So they never.
Were they athletes? Like recreational.
My dad played football, and he was and basketball, and he was very into it and everything like that. He was never going to go pro. I don't think he played in college. I think maybe like community college. But then my mom was a cheerleader, so it's like they never really.
But it was your road.
Right, exactly. And that's what and I am forever grateful for that. And like I always had friends that were definitely better than me. I didn't make the teams when I would try out for their teams and stuff. And like I was like always that kind of thing, but I just wanted to keep playing and get better for me. And I'm so grateful for that now. That I never fell into that.
Good. But do you know how hard that intrinsic motivation is to find nowadays?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, you have to be talking to kids about that.
All the time. All the time. When I work with kids, that's the biggest thing that we try and find is that what is important to you? What's that value to you? Like, what are you getting out of this? If it's always for other people, what's going to happen? Like, you're never going to ever find that validity only in other people. And like, I'm definitely also the type of mental coach that I'm never going to say that external factors don't matter. They matter. Like, that's what drives you. Obviously, you want to win. Like, you want to be competitive. There are things.
I have that even going on in my March Madness bracket now.
Exactly. It's like,
it never
it's
goes
something
away.
in you. And you don't want it to. So I don't like when people are like, oh, you shouldn't care what people think. You should care what people think.
And
you will learn.
Win.
Right. You will learn from that, and you will get better from what other people think. Doesn't mean you have to internalize it and make it your value and make it your sole purpose to please what other people think. It's just an aspect that motivates you, is that external. So to find the internal is like the hardest thing, and that's why, because not that it came easy to me, but because I had that, I wanted to study the mental side of things. So the sport and exercise psychology. I got my master's in, I guess I started 2018 when I got my shoulder surgery, because I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. I have to be out playing, and I need to want to learn anyway, so I'll just do it. Start it now. And I'm so glad I did that. And it gave me the education then on that other side. Like, I could do it myself, but how do I teach it to other people? How do I help other people actually find that when they don't have it? Because it's so different from what I experienced.
Do you find that people, I mean, and you're working with kids a lot of times, right? Is it hard? Do kids come to you wanting this stuff, or are their parents?
We were talking about that off camera before you got here, and I've been very lucky where most of the time the kids really, really want it, and they've been asking their parents for help, or they make it very obvious that they are struggling. So their parents find it and bring it to them and they're like, oh, yeah, I do want that.
And I think that's the upside of the mental health awareness that we're going through. Even though there's so many challenges out there, there's a lot more understanding of how to get help and what anxiety is, or what performance anxiety. I never knew when I stood on a swim block that when my muscles tightened up, I was like, oh, damn.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not going to swim fast because I'm going to tighten up in the second lap, and I can feel it in my arms. And I didn't know what that was.
Yep, exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
so,
and like those butterflies where everyone's like, butterflies are good. It's like, they are to a certain point. But if you're about to barf every time you go out to play, that's a little extreme. It also like makes you tired, or it tenses you up. There's so many different ways as well that people cope with. Now people are realizing, that's what I work a lot with my athletes, is like, okay, are you too relaxed? Are you too hyped up? We got to find that middle ground, because everyone's always talking about how the butterflies are maybe the only thing. But if you're too relaxed and just smooth going in, that's also a sign that your stress levels are super high and your body's coping by relaxing everything else. Yeah, just shutting down.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know if you know any of Brian McKenzie's work. Shift Adapt is the name of the company, and he's worked with a lot of elite athletes, but really they're working now with just like all the commoners that are wondering how to manage their stress. Yeah. And it's all about widening that window of tolerance. Yep. Right? It's not like, oh, I need to be sympathetic or parasympathetic, at certain times. It's like, how do you widen that window? Yeah,
exactly. And how do you cope with where you are or where other people are in that situation? Yeah. And I use that kind of approach too. Like when I'm working with my athletes, I always say, like, it's more than a game. It's like beyond the game. And what you're learning in sport applies to everything in your life, but also everything in your life when people are trying to teach you, take that into sport. Like it's all the same. My favorite quotes are like, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Oh my God, I just said that to my boyfriend last night.
Yes, it's so true.
Because you see it throughout life, right? Yeah. I mean, how you perform on a team or behave or on a team, you take it straight into the workplace. Yep. You're not a certain kind of parent and a different kind of boss. Yeah. Like it's
exactly.
These are the skills.
Yep.
It's so true. And that's what I wrote. I was like, life is a team sport.
Yeah. It really is. And like even just communication styles, how to accept feedback, how to give feedback back that you want them to be able to receive it properly. Yeah. I've worked a lot with my teammates even about that, so my last team, I love them to death. Yeah. They were babies. They were so young. I was the oldest, but like the rest, I was definitely the mama, and I was reminded of it all the time. Yeah. But because of that, I could easily keep the peace almost. Like if someone wanted to ask me a question, I could help them with that. Or because at that age, especially when you're like 16, 17, I definitely had this time. When I was in college, I yelled at people and not noticing that I was doing it, because I knew as a goalkeeper I needed to be loud. So I'm thinking I'm yelling, but it's coming across like I'm yelling at them instead of to them. Yeah. And they would react and everything like that. I remember getting taken out of a game, and because I was in tears, we were fighting. The team was just fighting. And my coach had to sit me down the next day, and he was like, look, I didn't take you out because you were doing bad. Like, I took you out because you couldn't handle the mental at that point, and it was for you that you needed to chill. And now we need to talk about how you talk to people on the field. And so I was always helping my teammates with that, because at that age, again, you don't realize what you're saying and how you're saying it. Yep. So I worked on both ends with my teammates. Okay, she's yelling at me all the time. Like, she is like picking on me, blah, blah, blah. No, she's not. Like, try and find the truth in what she's saying, not how she's saying it, the actual material of it, and how can you get better with that and return thing. Like, how you have to learn how other people communicate, and then how you can communicate back to them. And it was the same way on the other side. Okay, you sound like you are yelling at them. You sound like you are very, very mad, and I know that's not where you're coming from. She's like, no, that's not where I'm coming from. It's like, I know, but you need to change it now, because that person isn't receiving it. You can yell at me like that, but that person isn't receiving what you're saying. So how can you change it for them? And it's just so important, things that, like, you can take that then in life with the boss, with if you are the leader, then who's under you, like all of those types of things. respecting authority, but then also like respecting yourself. There's just so many things that go hand in hand on all. So when I work with my athletes, how's life? How's school? How are your friends? How's family? And I let them vent about all that, and we find a solution for that as well. Because it's all the same.
Oh yeah, because you're gonna take it out. Yeah, you take it out on the field, or you bring it home, and the car ride home, and all of those things, right? I mean, it's
exactly.
It's amazing. And that's why, I've never competed. I got cut from my college team, right? And ankle injury. And it wasn't until after that I realized all the things that I had learned that you do. Yeah. Like, you just bring them into life. It's the way I've parented my kids. It's the whole concept of, like, when things are hard, like, keep going. Yeah. I would say rest and recovery has been the biggest thing that took me a long time to learn. I'm learning that now. Yeah. And it wasn't, it's becoming more and more evident. And with all the injuries that you've been through, I'm sure that there were some things coming through.
Yeah, definitely. And the mental impact of that as well. Yeah. And I always say that, like, a lot of people will say that sports create who you are, but I kind of challenge that a little bit and say that sports exposes who you are and allows you the chance to change it. Because it's not that sport, and I think that's where it gets very individual, because it's not that sport just all of a sudden if you play a sport, you're good at time management, and you're good at communicating, and you're good at effort, and you're good at all of these things, especially if, like, you're just randomly good at something. Right. It definitely doesn't teach you all those things. You just have talent. Yeah. And then you figure out what to do when everybody else ups their game. Exactly. Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it exposes who you are and then allows you to change that if you don't like it, or if it's not serving you and it's not serving you in life, or it's up to you if you don't want to change it. So it's like, I think that's where when people say they learned from sport, it's like, yeah, it gave you the chance to learn because you were paying attention. And that's also why I like to work with athletes when they're in it already, or like going into college, like getting ready for those types of situations, instead of like how we're learning rest and recovery way after the fact. It's like, it would be so much better to just learn it first, going in and not like have to wait years after and be like, oh, that's what that situation was about. Yeah. Oh, crap. I wish I would have changed then.
Yeah. And how not to be so hard on yourself when you need it, because it actually is part of the flow cycle. It's part of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So there's another topic you and I talked about, and we have a course here called Go with the Flow, and the female hormone cycle for female athletes is something that I cannot believe. I mean, it was never talked about in my day. Yeah. And now it seems like it should be talked about a lot more, and I've been amazed because these college athletes have came through, and Kaylee York, she was an LSU volleyball player and helped us develop this course. Yeah. She and Ashley did it together, and it's something that it just blows my mind, because even going to injuries and rest and recovery and understanding what our hormone cycle, how it can actually work for us. Yeah. Did you have any experience, getting to know that, or changes that you could make
a little bit? And it's more like I'm learning now, again, after the fact, which I wish I knew during.
It's a hard topic.
Right. And it's especially when coaching is so male dominated. It's like males don't want to talk about, I know they don't want to talk about, but also some that I ran across like through my career, like don't care. They want to know. That way they can attribute some of the things that are happening to, okay, she's in her cycle. How can I coach you today? Right. And there is a lot of things happening, like they're changing white shorts to colored shorts and stuff like that. So I think it's getting there, but you're right. I don't think that it's talked about enough or addressed enough. I did have a few teams, they were like the higher level, that would always ask, like there's a survey, they would ask when your menstrual cycle is, so they knew when it was, how you were feeling, everything like that, and they could attribute that and be able to track it. There were some teams that tracked it but didn't do anything about it either.
Yeah, because it's what I've been fascinated with is like the way that you work out at different points in your cycle, what you're eating at different points in your cycle. Like that's makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I was on birth control for the longest time, and I got on it because I had really bad PMS symptoms, throwing up, terrible cramps, actually affected my life. I could not do anything while I had my period. Yeah. So I got on birth control for that reason. Now we're learning now that's a terrible way to do things.
I've been through this with my daughters.
Right.
Yes.
It is a terrible way to do things. It just hides symptoms. But to me, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I can actually just play and live life and be fine. So I never also really understood growing up, like in high school and everything, when my friends were like, oh, I have cramps. Like, I don't want to do anything. I was like, suck it up. Like, because we suck it up for injuries.
Right.
So I was like, suck it up. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not an injury. It affects everything, your mood. And so since coming off that type of birth control, and then even just birth control in general, the last few years when I tried to get off of it, I went crazy. Yeah. Like, my symptoms came back tenfold. I didn't even have enough energy to get through the days sometimes. And when you're at that level, I need energy.
Yeah.
And like, I need to perform all the time.
Yep.
And it got so bad, I was like, screw it, I'm going back on birth control. So I just got back on for my last few years of playing because I needed to perform. I had to perform, and it was the only way at that point that I knew how, because off seasons also aren't that long to like cope with any of it.
And to completely re-regulate your system.
Exactly.
I mean, through nutrition, through sleep, through all of the things that it takes to bring that down after years on birth control. Yeah, I mean, that's a super tall order.
Yeah. And you just didn't and I didn't think that it would take that long. Like, I think I did it during an injury maybe. I had like, once I got cleared for a while and I was like better, because I knew at that point also that it affects how your blood flows like through your whole body and how you can recover and stuff. I was like, okay, I'll wait till I'm recovered from the surgery a little bit longer. Tried to go off of it, and like I said, went absolutely psycho. Like, my whole body, not even just like my head, but like everything. And I was like, I have to play. I don't have the time for this. I'm going to keep putting it off. I don't have the time. I need to do it now. I need to be better now. Yeah. So I just put the Band-Aid on and complete it. And now I'm still paying for it because I waited that long. Again, we didn't really have, I don't think, the education.
Yeah, we didn't know what we're learning now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Everyone was happy that we had birth control. We're like, oh, this is a great invention. It's going to help everyone. It's like,
that's a whole can of worms we could open.
Exactly. Like, it's going to be great. And then now we're learning, it's like, oh, it's actually not great at all. But that's just the sign of the times as well.
And I think it's something for parents raising young girls. I mean, my girls are 23 and 18, but for this next generation of parents to understand that it's something you can really be cognizant of from the beginning, because with our food supply and the way that things are going now, girls are starting their periods so much younger. Yeah. And
that's soy and estrogen.
Yes.
And just like you can't flush as better, like your body isn't functioning as properly because of all the crap that's added to our food. Yep. So like being aware of that, because it's like you said, it's not just the knowledge of the hormonal system for the women. It's like,
but why it's changing, and how it affects your
and how our food system is now affecting the hormones, and then the hormones affect how we digest food, and it goes back and forth. It's like this long thing. And like, even with like exercising, it's not, what I love to say is like too, is it's not that there's one specific rule for everyone, because if you don't have that bad of symptoms and it's actually not, and you can work out all the time and not feel a difference, and cool, that's great for you. Don't list, like, you don't have to be like, oh, I'm in this phase, I can only do yoga. If you feel amazing, do it. Go for it. Do it. Like, you don't need to do this stuff and try and change your system, because that's not what your body wants. It wants to move. But then there's other times, and it could just be cycle to cycle as well. Like, there's sometimes like, I don't want to do, I definitely can't lift heavy. I definitely don't want to run. I definitely don't want to do these things. So just to chill. And it's great now that I don't have to play professionally and I can listen to that. But that's also where the issue comes in. It's like, okay, how can you listen to that when you're playing a sport? Because you're in season. Yeah. It's not like you can take a break when there's a game. Yeah. It's very hard balance. But I think the first step is being aware and tracking and doing what you can to support, like the nutrition, like the stretching, like being aware of injuries, more prominent injuries than, because like when I was in high school and stuff, we always knew, okay, girls get more ACL tears when they're on their period. We just knew. We didn't know why. Yeah. That was something to be aware of, like, oh God, do you have your period today? Because you're going hard. Right. Like, you might do it. But then that makes it even worse. But
I know, because then we put it in our minds, right? But there is, you're hitting the nail on the head though with just the self-awareness. Everything you're talking about and everything I love to break down and, sports and the game of life is just how do we keep upping that self-awareness game,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're talking about your mind, body, spirit, it's all connected.
Yeah, exactly. And if there are times that you can't necessarily listen to what you need or whatever, it's easier to push through and easier to bounce back from when you're aware of it. When you're aware of okay, I'm pushing myself right now.
Yes.
I'm pushing right. I know where I'm at. I need to plan when I'm going to rest and recover after this. I need to know what I'm going to do to balance that out. And your body will respond so much better to that and allow you to push more at different times than if you were to be go, 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 which is exactly what we were taught when we were younger. And it was definitely ingrained in my brain. My goalkeeper coach, I mean, if I didn't train at least twice a day with him during the summer, when I didn't have school, what are you doing? What else would you be doing? Why aren't you training twice a day? I would go, and I know this attributed to my injuries as well, but 3 sessions in a row, at least every single day. And then when I was prepping for college, it was okay, do at least 2 sessions in a row, and then also run your fitness tests, and then also make sure that you're studying and eating and drinking enough water. And if you aren't back to help me coach as well for other sessions, then it's what are you doing? And it's just that old school mentality.
It is.
It really is. And there are ways as a coach, and I feel like you might be able to agree with this, but as a coach now, I want my athletes to have that mentality, but know that mobility is pushing. That yoga, that nutrition, that is all no days off mentality. It's still that mentality. It's just now we've noticed how beneficial, how beneficial those building blocks are to all of it. It doesn't mean no days off, go as hard as you can every single day. It's no days off, you are focused on how every single thing affects your health and mental status throughout the entire team. That's what I hope everyone can start to learn and teach that hopefully to my athletes.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. And I think that's such a great mentality for coaches to have.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can do things young, but longevity, sustainability, long-term mental health, all of these things are so much more supported by what you just described.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And exactly when, even noise, it's okay, if you physically can't do something, can mentally you do something to help you? Whether that is relaxing, there's a lot, with the athletes that I work with, a lot of the time it's okay, what can you do to relax today? What can you do to have fun today instead? Because that serves you as well.
Oh, completely.
That is still working towards something. It's just not physically killing your body.
Yeah. It really is understanding the flow cycle, right? 100%. You're not going to get into the flow if you cannot recover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And struggle, right? I mean, it's that. And once you get a handle of that, you're oh, this is so much more efficient.
Yeah.
I never knew. So I'm doing it in life.
Yeah.
And sports is my outlet. I talk to a lot of professional athletes, and I play beach volleyball for fun.
Yeah.
And I tell them, and I'm you guys are out here trying to get every little thing right. I get out here and I turn my brain off.
Yep.
I'm just moving my body, seeing what I can do, and hopefully not getting hurt.
Yep.
And, it's a, sports are used for different things all through your life. So the better you take care of everything, the longer you enjoy it.
Yeah. And that reminds because I think to get to an elite status, you have to have this sort of obsession with it. And you do need to dissect everything. That's where that fine balance comes in. And I definitely have that even in my later years. My coach here, my goalkeeper coach here in California, he was always don't think. Yeah. He could tell when I'm overthinking, when I start to really suck during a training, or I just can't get something out. He's don't think. Just do. Yeah. Don't think. And I think that's some movie reference as well. But I forget what he talks about it all the time. But he's don't think, just do. Just do it. And I'm okay. And then so I try and teach that too.
Because you'd already done the training.
Right.
And then the mind gets involved. And I that's another thing I've been working on just in life is feeling overthinking.
Exactly.
Because overthinking will kill you every time.
Yep. My fiance is an overthinker, and I tell him it's been good because he makes me think a little bit more. In life, he makes me think a little bit more, and I make him think a little bit less. And it will analysis paralysis, and then you never decide anything, or you're overthinking every little thing. So then it destroys the moment you're in, because you're thinking about what everyone's thinking, or what if this happens, or what if this happens, and there's so much that goes into it that ruins the actual moment. So not just in sport, like obviously if you're overthinking, it ruins your performance. If you're overthinking in life, it ruins that moment for you. And your performance as a human, as like a personality, as a friend, as a like mother, like it's so much.
You miss things, and then the overwhelm hits, and when you hear how much people are talking about anxiety these days, that's what anxiety is.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Presence is huge. I took yoga for me to come down and realize that. Yeah.
See, I can't. That's where I like to teach too. Is like I can't rest. I will say I cannot sit most of the time. There are some times I definitely can. I cannot sit for a long period of time and try and be mindful. I need to be either purposefully thinking about something, like where I'm sitting down to think about this. Yeah. Like that's a mindfulness practice, and then also I have to be walking.
Yes. See, that's where we know each other. Yeah. Every time I get stuck, I just walk out my front door and I walk down through the Riviera. Yep. And
100%. We definitely see each other because I'm walking all the time. Yeah. Especially when I'm in California because it's so easy. But walking, and it clears your mind. I can listen to a podcast while I do it that I want to learn about something. And that's my meditation. And I try and teach my athletes that as well. Meditation doesn't need to be there's a Buddha behind it, like a Buddha. No, like
I'm not that either.
It needs to be something that just keeps you present and keeps you mindful in that moment. Yeah, it doesn't need to be.
And silence. That's why flow yoga works for me, because I realized my brain really came down and got really present. Yeah, but I was moving. Right. It's
and it's so present on your muscle and your movement, and that is a form of mindfulness, and that's what I think people forget. And a lot of my athletes would get scared, like, okay, I want you to do some mindfulness practice or some meditation, and they're like, and I was like, it could literally be you sit here and you do a body scan, and from head to toe, and you feel every single body. That's mindfulness practice. Like it's so easy to be, and even if you're walking, you're focusing on every single step, like just every single muscle. Am I hurting somewhere? There's so many ways to be able to do my visualizing. That's a mindfulness practice. Like every practice in training, you can do a mindfulness practice. It all works together, and that's where people don't realize they can stack habits and stuff.
Oh gosh, yes. I was just doing this with my 18-year-old yesterday. She was super overwhelmed, and I'm like, hey, all we gotta do is break this down into smaller steps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just doing the dishes. You can do so much thinking and so much mindfulness while you're doing the dishes, or cleaning anything, or there's so much you can just stack on top of each other. And breathing while you're doing this. This goes with this. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I do my red light and my meditation at the same time.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. Then you get 2 health benefits, especially if you're busy. Yeah. You're getting health benefits by if you're making your bed, you're practicing mindfulness. Okay, I'm making sure that this is this corner. There's just so many ways that you can work it all together. I used to call it
falling in love with the mundane.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd be like, people are happier when they learn to love to empty the dishwasher. Yeah. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but there's something to it. Yeah. And I learned that. That came to me in my 20s, and I kept watching people, because there's always the big stuff, right? We're always looking for the next vacation and the next, you just went to Costa Rica and we were talking about that. That's amazing. Yeah. But it's mostly every day. It's if you can love the little things in your day, it becomes
romanticize your life.
Yeah. It's so much. It's just so much better.
Yeah. That's so amazing, because I learned that a little bit through Jay Shetty, as I love following him. Yeah. And he talks about it. But then I also learned, when I was listening to athletes and stuff during all their podcasts and listening to those types who, they talked about, Tom Brady and, things like that. They were always in there early focusing on, the little fingers, exercises they need. Aaron Rodgers, focusing on finger exercise they need to do. The very boring stuff that you think is boring, that you think is mundane and repetitive all the time that you have to do. But it's what made them great. It made them mindful of every little thing. It prepped them for the rest of their training the same way, being present for dishes or making your bed is going to prep you for the day ahead of you. There's so many little things you can get out of loving the mundane and doing them repetitively and making it a habit for yourself that you enjoy doing. Yeah. And loving the mundane. I love that. Yeah.
There's another topic. I feel like we could do this for 4 hours. But there's another topic that I think is really important, and I think for all athletes, but being a female athlete and knowing precision is so key at the as you work up. Yeah. But perfectionism is such a thing that athletes and everybody, a lot of people deal with, but athletes in particular. Do you have any good advice for younger girls that are maybe they don't even know yet that they're dealing with perfectionism?
I always start just by saying the really easiest is like nothing's perfect. Yeah. You're never going to get perfect. And what I usually do with my athletes is I'll break down, okay, but what is success for you? Mm-hmm. What does that mean? It doesn't need to be a performance thing. And that can build some confidence about the perfectionism, because perfectionism also usually comes from looking at the bigger scale, the bigger picture of like all of it together, creating whatever perfect image you have in your head, and that you think everything is going to go perfect. It's like, but you could also get to that by shifting gears and leaning into something else, or leaning into what gives you energy and what serves you versus what you think is supposed to be perfect. Because most of the time, it's hard to explain and takes like a lot of effort and again, mindfulness of it. But most of the time we are putting the label of perfect on something. No one else is. We're putting that label on it. Like, right. We're just saying, this is supposed to be perfect and this is my vision of perfection. But no one else is saying that. Like, no one else is saying it needs to go that way. We're the ones putting that pressure on ourselves for that specific thing. Yeah. And there are so many ways we can get to an end result that there isn't one way to get there. So with that type of stuff, it's about breaking down every step, like you were saying, making everything little and being like, does it matter if you get this right? If you get this one right? Or if you get that one wrong, can you do this right? Like, there are just so many ways. And sometimes you
can't even see what it's going to lead to.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So I was telling my daughter the concept of just being excited about what you don't know.
Yeah.
Instead of
that growth mindset. Yeah. That you're accepting that challenge. There's another quote that I like, and it's like, for all things contribute to my advancement. Mm-hmm. So perfection is boring. Yeah. You don't learn from perfection. Most of the time you luck into perfection and you don't know how you got there, and you don't feel deserving of it. Right. And then you're like, did I do this? Like, what did I do to get there? And so, then you fall off, and then you're like, but it happened last time. It's like, you have to be able to learn from the good and the bad. And if you fall into perfection, or you just think everything's perfect all the time, and you get everything perfect all the time, you're never really going to learn. There are some things you can learn, obviously, like, for all things contribute to my advancement, but the biggest lessons are the hardest lessons, and they're the ones that, like, you never expected, and they're from your losses and mistakes and everything like that. Yeah. And it's very hard, and it takes time to accept that. But like I said, when I was younger, honestly, even into my, I'm definitely younger, but even into my professional career, I would have nightmares. Even if we won, even if I didn't get scored on, if I did something wrong, I would have nightmares about it that night. I did not sleep after games, ever. Wow. I would stay up at least until 4 a.m. every game night. Like, there was maybe slept 2 hours. And I knew that about myself. Yeah. And it did start to creep in towards the end of my career, too, in my last season. And that was because I had injuries and I wasn't performing like I wanted. And I wasn't training like I wanted. So it's like relying on your preparation to accept the mistakes and everything like that is also part of the process, because there's definitely more I could have done my last year to mentally be ready to not perform the way I wanted. Again, having that perfectionist mindset, I put that on me. Yeah. My teammates still loved me. My coaches still thought I was doing a great job. The board of the team still thought I was doing a great job. Other coaches, other teams still thought I was doing great. But for me, it wasn't enough. Yeah. So it's something we put on ourselves. Yeah. So it's about breaking that cycle of us putting that perfectionism on us. Yeah. And again, even in life, people can take that little bit too. No, that is so huge. That is some solid advice. And I knew that had run through your game. Yeah, for sure. And definitely you were talking about the injuries and how it slows you down, and it can really mess with your mind. And I know that's something that you're working on now. You want to tell us about? Yeah, I am starting the injury reserve. I have a few athletes signed up right now, and it's basically a group for injured athletes. That way they can come together and really work on creating this sense of community and helping get through what we think is such a hard time. And I do have a journal out for injured athletes on Amazon. And in the very beginning, I say, like, it's called The Power of Injury. And that's because I used to think that all the times of my injuries were like the worst times, and I couldn't wait to get out of them, and like couldn't wait to get better and all this stuff. But really, it's like those are the best times. I learned the most about myself. I learned the most about my teammates. I learned the most about the game. Like, I learned where my passions really lied, even about sport, like where I liked to play, what I was missing, like all that kind of stuff. It is really, and it helps build your character. And I say that because I let it build my character. I leaned into it. I tried to love the process. I love the mundane and love getting better at something. There's like beauty in learning to get better at something again, or getting good at something again. And there was a lot of times that I didn't think that. Like I said, I wanted it to just be over, obviously, because you want to just get back out there. But that reminder of, okay, but this is something special too. There's a reason for this, and what reason am I supposed to take of it? Because when I got my shoulder surgery in 2018, I got my master's, and I got to learn about that. When I also got injured, I was in Tel Aviv, and I learned Israel changed my life when I played there. It absolutely changed my life. And because I got injured there, it allowed me to really relate and bond with a lot of people that lived there, like my Israeli friends. And they taught me the value of life outside of sport, and how you should enjoy every single second of it. And if I wouldn't have gotten hurt, I never would have gotten that experience. I don't think I would have been able to lean into it that much. And from that point on, even now I'm like recovering. I'm a little bit over 2 months out from another ankle surgery. And I just keep remembering all this stuff. Like, okay, there's a beauty in this right now. Like what, and there's beauty in getting fit again and in a different way for me, and not having to push for a professional career and all this stuff. So I want this injury reserve to be something that I can help people with. Like, obviously I'd be like facilitating it and mentoring and help people get through injuries, but really the community itself relating to each other, realizing everyone's going through this when they get injured, no matter how small the injury is or how big the injury is. I think that's also where people are like, oh, but it's just a broken wrist. Like, you'll be fine. You'll recover.
No, if you're not playing.
Exactly. It is just because what we do is we make life or death. Like, we make sport life or death to us. And that's identity, normal. Yes.
And
it's
time is
totally
fleeting.
Normal.
And,
but it's just about how do you cope with that, and how do you change that to not affect your entire life after that. Because it's good to make it that life or death, fight or flight, because your body doesn't know the difference necessarily when you're at that competitive state and elite mindset and the growth mindset and everything. Like, your body doesn't know the difference, so it reacts the same. And it's great because you need that to be able to have the competitive edge to want to keep getting better. But you need to know when to shut it off. And when it's, okay, this actually isn't life or death.
I learned so much of that through master swimming, because you were in a pool, and there were some people that had just gotten off a college team that hadn't burnt out. More power to them, because a lot of them take a big break, right? They come back in their 30s. But all the way, you'd go to meets and you'd see people that were 80, 90. There's 100 plus age group.
That's crazy.
And there'll be Olympians swimming over here. And it was the biggest realization for me of like, wow, like everybody's getting something out of this, and it's different for everyone. Right? Exactly. And so those kind of realizations can come through when you're injured.
100%.
Because your body is not. And I am so grateful. That's one of my gratitude practices, is every day that I can even just walk around, because I had a full ankle reconstruction 2 years ago. And I've had like 4 surgeries on that foot. So but it really is, like, it gives you perspective of, how to come back. What are the goals in coming back? How can you be a better person?
And that was one of my main struggles of deciding if I was going to keep playing or not, because this is my 3rd surgery. I got 2 ankle surgeries, one in 2021 on the cusp of 2022. And then, I got a few. So 2020 into 2021, and then 2021 into 2022. And that one, I didn't know if I was going to come back from that first ankle surgery. I was like, I'm just going to see. And if it takes me where I feel good and I want to do it, then cool. And it brought me back to playing, but then I ruined it more. So I got that other one and I was like, okay, I'll try again. But my last season, I was on so many drugs that I don't even remember half the games. I maybe played 3 games not on meds. And I didn't want to play like that. That's not the game you fall in love with. So it made me start thinking, like, I want to live an active life. Like, because that stopped me from doing a lot of the daily things and getting the actual benefits of just regularly being active and taking walks and things like that. And I was like, I want to be able to do this stuff. Yeah. Like,
and your feet are foundation. Right. If there's anything I can tell you,
exactly.
It is.
You can't walk. I can't walk. I can't go for a 30-minute walk. What am I supposed to be doing in life? Like, there's no way I can live the active life and be happy in life without stopping playing. When is that limit of you stop pushing your body? And I thought about, before this right ankle surgery, I kept toying like, hey, am I going to go back? I did go back for a little bit during preseason last year, and some other things fell through, like contract wise. And it kind of made me take that step back and like, is this happening for a reason? Is this a little bit more of a sign to reevaluate what I'm doing to my body? Because I don't want to have another season of me just on pain meds. That's not enjoying the game. Like I said, I struggled huge mentally my last season because I couldn't make decisions the way I wanted. Like, because again, when you're on drugs and stuff, like I say drugs, but it wasn't like that. It was like just like medication. But I was high.
They're powerful. Oh my gosh, no, you're not yourself.
I was high. I was not making the decisions I wanted to make half the time, and that then impacted my mental, because then I'm reevaluating and I'm like, why did I do that? So that's when you fall back in that trap, and I'm like, I don't want to do that again this year. And I want to live an active life. I want to be able to, I was in Iceland, I want to go hike to the volcanoes that are erupting. Like, I want to do that. I had to tape my ankles to do it. I'm like, I have to tape my ankles for a regular activity that 80-year-olds can go do. I have to tape my ankles and like I'm about to go compete.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, when do I draw the line here? Like, I want to play with my kids one day. I want to be able to run and play for fun one day and get those benefits of exercising. It's like, that is so huge. Like, what do you actually want out of sport? What do you actually want out of this? Because if it's dragging you down and it's not bringing you enjoyment or even happy hormones, some endorphins, like something, why are you doing it? Like, why are you doing it? And that's not, I don't want kids to stop in that way. I think that there's just that fine line of, and I think when you ask kids that, they're like, oh, I want to have fun. Like, I actually do want to have fun. And I play better when I have fun. And I want to be with my friends. And I go through all of that when I talk with my athletes of like, what are your values? Is playing these sports in line with your values, your friendship, family? Yeah, it is. Cool. So let's keep relying on those as we go through. If you make a mistake, if you do get an injury, okay, why are you doing it? For my family and friends. Cool. Perfect. And it drives you even more. So if you can bring that into just normal activity, then it's all the more powerful.
And it's clear. I mean, you've walked all of these paths, and it's cool to see how you're pulling it together. To help other people, because that's another tenet of mine is like, the hardest things we go through them so we can learn and help other people. And you're clearly on that track. It's really cool to see. So how do injured athletes find you to join Injured Reserve?
I have a website, but it's a little bit hard to say. But if my link is in my Instagram, oddball_00, or I have
we'll put it all in the show notes.
And I have another one that's like Quam Ludam, which means beyond the game in Latin. I have another Instagram page. It's more like my mental skills.
That was great.
So that's going to be more active. Because I'm like, now that I'm retired, I can pay a little bit more attention.
Social media.
I know it's not my thing.
Me either.
So if you go from there, you go to my website. That's way better. I'll answer DMs and everything. I'm always there, but. I'm
long form conversations where it's at.
Exactly. Like, we'll schedule a call, be able to talk everything through it, and get way better that way.
Awesome. And what ages if you're not injured and the people want to work with you?
Same way. And it's any age group. I've worked with I tend to start around 9 is probably the lowest I've ever coached, and that's because there's some special 9-year-olds that really want that help, or just like confidence and easy things like that. I say easy, but like just like simple.
But you know what? It's so
concept.
much starting younger. Like
exactly.
I wouldn't say put the pressure on them, but sometimes it's easier because they're not. Yeah. I've like working with 12-year-olds versus 14-year-old teams.
Yeah.
You can. Different concepts are just open, and like you just they just.
And they take it. Yeah.
And then at 14,
they actually learn.
Like, oh, that sounds, it's like
that's the important part is
in.
learning as early as you can. Yeah. So if there's athletes that are open to learning that, more power to them. And I'm more than willing to speak and coach with them. And then cool. Goes all the way up to professional level. So, or even not. Yeah. I've worked with musicians as well.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Coaches.
See, and
so
that's
the
thing. Yeah, it's all performance, and there's so many, again, going back to, just being able to show up and be at your best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and always getting a little bit better.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, I love it. The last question I ask a lot of people that come on the podcast, and I think you'd have a good answer for this, but one piece of advice you would give to your younger self.
Enjoy the moment. Be grounded and enjoy the moment, because I always looked for that next step as I was going through, especially my professional career. Always looking for that next. Always looking for, okay, but once I finish this, I can do this. And once I do this, then I can do this. It's so much more enjoyable if you just enjoy the moment for what it is, and everything will work out like it's supposed to, no matter what.
Oh, I can't end on a better note than that. I couldn't agree with you more. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Right up my alley.
Yeah, this was perfect.
Well, thanks, Jerry, for putting us together.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on What I Meant to Say, another production of Inspired Edutainment, brought to you by Be Better Media.